again. It's Monday already. It's Monday let's see. Oh, it's the 19th, is it? Oh, already, Monday the 19th of November. Can't believe that. I'm just thinking, a bit of a panic. I've got a dissertation to try and finish by the 30th of next month. So I'm in slight panic mode. So yeah, Monday, News Monday, Moaning Monday, whatever you want to call it, really. Let me see. So, what's been in the news? Well, Brexit, or the Mrs May's preliminary deal for Brexit. After 2 years, we've waited 2 years patiently with very little information, more or less no information, and here's Mrs May with her Chequers deal, basically, which she, of course, stoically refuses to change or make any compromise on. And it's a joke. It's a joke. If you voted for Brexit, which obviously the majority did, because that's why we're doing it, that's why Article 50 was triggered, you will feel cheated. You've been diddled, because of course this isn't exiting the EU in any sense that anybody in the country who voted for it would understand it, today. So it's all, it all kicked off on, was it Thursday, Friday? But yeah, Thursday, gone over the weekend, obviously Monday now. Today on the news we hear that one of the biggest problems with it, which is the temporary, which she said would be a few months issue with the backstop. So basically the Northern Irish border, which is always there. I don't know what you think. The customs union rules that apply to Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, of course, and the mainland, might be there for another, was it 2 years even? Up to 2022, according to Barnier, the EU negotiator, which will just compound the fears, and I think the well-founded fears and anger of anyone that voted for Brexit. If you didn't vote for Brexit, obviously you're going to be unhappy. Whatever happens, unless you get a second referendum or some way of stopping Brexit. But of course, Brexiteers won. Those who voted won the vote 2 years ago. So yeah, what a dog's breakfast. We had one Tory MP scumbag after the next coming out saying, "No, we don't need a change of leadership. We don't need a change of government. We need to press on I love this, in the British interest, in the public interest. Do me a favour. Public interest would be you lot would go away, so we could rebuild our welfare state, our social security, our social services, everything you've spent the past 8 years selling off and dismantling, to the point where people are literally starving in Britain, in the sixth richest country in the world. People are saying, what you won't have seen in the news is that the UN, what you won't have seen on the TV or print media, is that the UN actually sent a special rapporteur here to the UK to look into poverty and how it's hitting ordinary people. He was here for 2 weeks. I don't know about you, but I heard nothing about it for those 2 weeks in any of the mainstream media. He left just as all this was happening on Friday, I think, to go back to write his report and deliver it. He put out initial findings which were damning, to say the least, of the government and their social care benefits, universal credit benefit sanctions, policy, what it's doing to people. He met lots of people that were actually directly affected. When he put his concerns to government ministers, he was told by them that there's no problem at all and everything's fine. There are no issues to answer. But of course, you didn't see that anywhere, unless you might have seen it on social media where people like me shared it as much as we possibly could. So once again, as with Brexit, the Tories are running and hiding, lying, doing whatever they want, because they can, because they're not, specifically not being held to account by our famed media and all of those highly paid, highly experienced journalists, you know. In fact, we saw quite the opposite. All I saw over the weekend from the BBC, particularly Sky News, and the ones that sort of covered it was, oh, poor Mrs May, oh, you're being bullied. You're being bullied by Rees-Mogg and Johnson. Oh, you know, we must feel sorry for her. Even if you don't agree with her, let's feel sorry for poor Mrs May. Poor Mrs May. Not the poor people around here who are literally being chucked out of their houses because they can't afford the rent or their flats. Not the poor homeless people I meet every single day. New ones, literally every month, new people here that I befriend that are homeless. Not all the poor families in my area who literally rely on the food bank and food bank referrals, or terrified because they're getting no-fault evictions orders. Where's Sky News and BBC saying feel sorry for them? They're not saying. What did they say? Feel sorry for all of the suicides that have occurred under her tenure. You know. No, but feel sorry for Mrs May because she's being bullied. Do me a bleeding favour, so I'm trying not to swear here. As you can tell, I'm getting wound up, as I'm sure you are. So no, I've no sympathy for Mrs May because she spent 2 years quietly, in secret, creating this utter nonsense, which is great for the EU. They're rubbing their they're delighted, you know, absolutely. Of course they are. They've got everything they want out of it, and we've got nothing. Not because people voted Brexit, but because these Tory liars, these thieves, the kings of thieves and the queens of thieves, were in charge of it. And of course everyone's saying, oh well, we don't want a general election, because if we had a general election, so what? How would that change things? Jeremy Corbyn would be in charge, and what's he going to do? He can't sort of change the deal. You're still stuck with the same, more or less, deal. What it would change, of course, is, as Mark Sawotka said, or pointed out on Question Time last Thursday, is that what would change is people here wouldn't be going to food banks, because they wouldn't need to, because universal credit would be amended or ended, benefit sanctions would be amended or ended, things that are actually driving people to food banks and onto the streets and to suicide. Disability assessments would be either scrapped or amended to be actual assessments. So things will change immediately, actually, because the ideology would be completely different. It would be a socialist ideology, it would be a socially progressive ideology, rather than the Tories' ideology of sell it all off or destroy it to make sure that people like me and you have almost no options at all economically, and we have the choice of working for the companies that their mates owned, but either were 0 hours contracts or short hours contracts and too scared to do anything, you know, make a sound about any sort of breaches of your rights as a worker because you're so desperate for money, or universal credit, or the street. That's your option. It's all. Don't never fall into something thinking this is by mistake because they just didn't understand, or you know, they've had 8 years of understanding how their policies are working. They know exactly what it's doing to you. Hence their response to the UN Special Rapporteur. They don't care. Amber Rudd, who's the new Work and Pension Secretary, McVeigh went on Thursday or Friday. We all cheered a cheer, sigh of relief. Thank God for that. Who did she replace McVeigh with? Amber Rudd, who caused the Windrush crisis, which is still going on. Who she specifically chose as a replacement for herself, Mrs May, as Home Secretary when she became the Tory party leader. because she knew how right-wing Amber Rudd was, and that she's a robot. She's a yes woman. She knew she'd continue what she started at the Home Office, which was this. What's the term? I thought the term was now. Basically, atmosphere of you're not welcome to foreigners and the Windrush people. I can't remember the exact term now. But that's why she was there. That's why she's doing this now. So nothing's changed. All she's done is doubled down. So anyway, fingers crossed. Rees-Mogg and all of the right-wingers in the Tory party mount a leadership challenge. Fingers crossed that she gets damaged enough so she can't carry on. Which will all feed into the fact that, hopefully, fingers crossed from the sounds of it, this ain't going to be, the deals are not going to be voted through Parliament unless enough Labour MPs jump ship, which would be absolutely a complete travesty and just, well, I don't want to swear, but unfortunately there's enough of them to do it who are prepared to throw their poorest constituents under the bus due to their hatred for Corbyn and us. So we'll have to see. Another thing I want to address is, if you ever watch these sort of faux debates on the BBC and Sky News, it's if it's Labour MP on or something, or Corbyn or Sky, well, what's your position? Your position's very confused, isn't it? You said, Jeremy, Mr. Corbyn, that Brexit can't be stopped, and your Shadow Minister, Keir Starmer, for Brexit, said that it could be stopped. Of course, oversimplifying it, because they want to attack Corbyn, as they always want to, because they're all from the same. It's all about class. They're all from the same socio-economic class. The editors of Sky and BBC News, the presenters, the MPs, the business owners. They all went to the same schools, the same public schools. Very small pool. It's still who you know, not what you know. Still, we all know that. So they're all right wing, self-loving. I was going to say Tory-loving, but no, it's all about themselves. Self-loving, greedy, selfish, know nothing, care nothing, vacuous people. But unfortunately, they're in charge of our media and our government and many other big business, and many other aspects. There's a difference between big business, like the address of the CBI today, mates, and to, of course, don't give a fig about what happens to you or me. And your Auntie Vi that owns a flower shop in the high street. It's a completely different sort of thing. So I suppose a Marxist in a sense, as much as I follow and agree with or think Marx's theory fits the system as an explanation for the system better than most, and particularly now we're seeing the evidence of that bearing fruit once again. As far as the problems with capitalism and rampant capitalism unchecked by government, which is one of the main, in my view, responsibilities of government is to truncate rampant capitalism to protect people who need protecting. Capitalism does not protect people who need protecting; it exploits them, which is what we've got now. So that's all been going on anyway. That's all been fun and games. You have to see where that goes. If the Tories somehow limp on to 2022, when the next general election's supposed to be, I was saying to one of my friends this morning, I can't see what's going to be left, frankly. for any of us, particularly at the bottom of the economic run. There's going to be nothing left. I mean, what is there now? 4 years from now, I just can't see. I mean, what will be left to save? So we have to do something, and it has to be a general election. If we get a people's vote, as many of my friends would like, who weren't Brexiteers, who were Remainers, and I understand what, but if we get a people's vote, all that's going to happen is you have another referendum. It could still be no. It could likely still be out. They don't know. You don't know exactly what the questions are, which is fine. But then say they get what they wanted, and it was all right. This time we want to stay. Okay, so they just scraped that. Well, they've got a different decision, but with the same Tories in charge, which means you don't get rid of food banks or benefit sanctions, people committing suicide, people dying, death stats on ESA. You don't get waspy women's being in their pensions. Nothing changes. Everything stays the same. All you've got is the opposite result for opposite result for the referendum, which they would be sorting out again. And look what they've done. The brilliant job they've done this time. The bang up job. So other than changing the decision potentially, how would anything be any better for most ordinary people? That's what I would say to people who want a people's referendum. Again, I find the term quite insulting, frankly, because who voted for the last one in 2016? Were they not people? Was that not a people's referendum? And don't forget, I understand what you feel like say, but the people's referendum is being pushed by Blair and Alistair Campbell and Mandelson and all of them because their mates run Europe. They profit from staying in Europe. That's why they want to stay in Europe. If we stayed in Europe and we did get a general election, and Corbyn and Labour get in with their socially progressive manifesto, much of what's in it, so renationalisation, the regional banks, wouldn't be permitted under EU competition law and things like that. So I understand why people at a visceral level feel the way they do, particularly when you heard all the sort of stuff from Johnson and Farage about foreigners this and foreigners that, which of course is just nonsense. But despite that, we need to leave. We need to leave to implement, leave properly, not maze leave, to implement the manifesto, because we need a degree of legal freedom to do that in these areas, which the EU directives will not let us do, and from Lisbon Treaty, Maastricht and things like that, basically. And we need a general election for other reasons, which is to stop the Tories destroying the lives of the poorest. And not even the poorest anymore, the poorest upwards, the poorest to the middle class. If you're in a good job, or used to be a good job, well paid job, you're struggling now more than you were. If you're struggling, imagine what's happening to me and my residents. In a very deprived part of the world, of the country. So that's the big news anyway. And my, I was hoping it would be a slightly educational rant, if anything else. I was out on the weekend in town centre talking to people, getting a universal credit petition signed. This is with the People's Assembly in Rill. Went really well, as usual, always does. Lots of people spoke about this and other things. Everybody's in pain. I've noticed after 2 years of doing it, more people seem to be aware of what's going on now, which is really good. Because I've been killing myself with my mate, or we have as the People's Assembly in Rill, for 2 years now out on the streets, trying to get the news and messages through that the media are specifically not doing. So trying to do their jobs for them, basically. Like many of you watching this through social media, but through being out on the street as well. So there's much more awareness about, which is great. So that's a sign of hope for the future. You have to have hope. This is the problem that people living here don't have any hope left. When you've got no hope left, that's it. Hope's the last sort of, the last bit of safety, the safety net in your head. I've been there. You thought, what's the point? 3 years signing on, killing myself, trying to skill up and working non-stop voluntarily in all these great sort of things which were helping people and great, but didn't help get me a viable full-time job that an adult can live on, or even part-time jobs that an adult can live on, because they just aren't here. So yeah, you got to have hope somehow. So that's the message today. Hold on to your hope. If you haven't got some, talk to somebody, talk to a friend, get some back. Comment down below, talk to us on here, talk to me, I'll respond to any comments when I've got time, and keep it here. We're in solidarity with you if you're watching this, and I think that's all for now. I've got to go to an appointment at the council, so I've got concerns to raise there about how things are run, but we'll see how that goes. And any more news that comes up with Mrs May and the government and their future, there'll likely be another video dropped before next Monday. So, we've got a Real People's Assembly have got a we need a general election event, which we're holding in Real. If you'd like to know a bit more about it, then comment below, and I'll stick the details in the box down below if you want to go along. But it's going to be in Real. It's only for 2 hours on Thursday evening, so if you're quite a way away, it's not probably going to be worth travelling all the way. But it's just basically a discussion with amongst ourselves and amongst all of our friends from different groups across North Wales and into the northwest, about all of this really, what I've just been talking about, why we need a general election, full stop. So anyway, enjoy your week, keep wrapped up warm. It's going to be cold this week, and I'll see you next time. And I would say ciao from Che, but Che's on a different wall. He got a different view today, so ciao for now.